Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our Acronis Cyber Summit today. We're really happy to have you join us for this EMEA panel with amazing international journalists. My name is Mareva Koulamallah. I am the head of public relations and communication at Acronis for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I have with me today Ana Maria Montero, an international broadcast journalist, Joel Zaidspiner, a vice president and associate publisher at Channel Pro Network, Craig Galbraith, executive editor at Informatech, and Allison Francis, editor at Informatech. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. We're really excited to hear about your experience and exclusive insight into how to work with you journalists, because for us PR professional or businesses or individual, it's really important to get the name and the brand out there. And we're so honored to have you. Anna, if you want to go ahead maybe first and introduce yourself to everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Mareva. It's really a pleasure to be with you all tonight. Thank you for joining us. So I come from a 20-year career in television, broadcast, radio, and TV. I pretty much spent my entire career with CNN. I started as an intern in Atlanta and then went to California, and I worked out of the LA bureau for about 15 years before coming to Switzerland, to Zurich, where I was part of the CNN Money Switzerland team here as well. So hope that I can provide you with some insight from my experience.
Thank you so much. Great to have you. Joel, if you want to say a few words.
Thanks, Mareva, for having me. Joel Zaidspiner with Channel Pro Network, Channel Pro network.com, Channel Pro SMB Magazine, and IoT Playbook. I've been in the channel for 22 years, as I had mentioned. Used to be with a competitive publication. Came here about 12 plus years ago to the Channel Pro Network and have grown it where it is today. We target the SMB channel, and I look forward to our conversation today with all of our counterparts here in the industry.
Thank you so much for joining us as well. Craig?
Thanks for having us, Mareva, definitely. Looking forward to this conversation as well. I'm Craig Galbraith, Executive Editor for Channel Partners Online and Channel Futures. Channel Partners Online focuses more on the telecom agent side of the channel, while Channel Futures focuses more on VARs and MSPs. You may know us best from our trade shows, the Channel Partners Conference and Expo, Channel Partners Evolution, and of course this year it was Channel Partners Virtual.
Thank you so much. And Allison?
Yeah, so again, thanks for having me today. I work with Craig. I've been with Informatech and Channel Futures and Channel Partners for about 4 years now. I actually come from a background in PR, so I'm looking forward to kind of sharing insights from both sides of the coin today.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm really honored to have you. I guess the first thing that our viewers want to know is, besides all the secrets that you're going to share, is how can we get our story across, right? How can we make sure that you guys either get back to us or at least get an understanding of our brand, any tip, and obviously any things that someone shouldn't do? Who wants to go first here? Maybe Craig?
Sure, no problem. I would say the first thing is to personalize your message. So many times people don't realize that the media, we're not homogenous. We have all kinds of different needs. Our brands, Channel Partners Online and Channel Futures, we're always looking for any combination of news to lists to contributed content such as blogs. I think so many times PR folks or anyone who's trying to get out some sort of message just sort of sprays the crowd, and you might send something out to 100 people and you'll get almost no hits because you don't have a specific message targeted to your audience, and that is us. So my recommendation initially would be to send out an introductory email, say who you are, and specifically ask us what types of things we're looking for, since we are all different. And you might spend a little more time initially doing that, but instead of spraying out to hundreds of different media outlets, you might be able to focus your message, send it out to just a percentage of that, and you'll get a lot more interest coming in when you get that message out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other tip?
I was going to kind of go back or go off of what Craig said. And yes, absolutely, do your research beforehand, drill down into, who writes about what. You want to do your research first, but, in the pitch itself, get to your value proposition right away. With what you're sending, you may think, or the company you represent may think, like, this is the biggest announcement of the year, or, what it may be important, and it probably is, but let us know in the most concise way right away, what you're trying to get across. I was always a fan of using bullets. That was one thing that I found to be really helpful. If there's a press release associated with the announcement, include that, but maybe underneath your signature, you're just trying to get across the bare minimum, get your value proposition in there first. And then if they want the full information, they can reference that later. But that's kind of what I would say, is just get in there right away.
I absolutely second both what you've said, and also Craig, with, in TV especially, we think in terms of, well, I'm in print actually too. You think in terms of headlines, right? So just give me the headline. Tell me exactly what it is that you want me to know about what it is you're doing, and just do it as quickly as possible. And also, as you said, direct it to the right person. So if I do a tech show, don't send me a press release about finance, because that's just going to go in the delete folder. So make sure that you do get to know your journalists and the people that you're pitching to. I think that's very important. And like you said, the bullet points are good points. I'm also a fan of those. And a personalization, like if it's not just to whom it may concern or dear newsroom. If you send it to me specifically, that's also flattering. No, it's not flattering. It's really makes me feel like, okay, you did your homework. And so I will be more open to paying attention. And one last thing that makes me nuts is typos. Like if you're going to send a request for something, please spell check it and grammar check it, because then that really makes me feel like you just phoned that in. And delete,
Make sure you're sending it to the right person. You do your homework and you get it to the right person, that you're emailing the content with the right name. I mean, if not, it's going in the garbage. And also, our publication at Channel Pro Network, we look for best business practices. We look for a good story about what you did different than what the other guy did, whether it's a vendor or whether it's an MSP. So those are really important things. And at Channel Pro, we talk more about MSPs than we do about vendors. So it's really important for an MSP in the US market that's an SMB partner to send us that kind of message.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. One challenge I see from a PR perspective, and especially after what you mentioned here, which is interesting, is the length of a press release, because obviously I think the shortest, the sharpest. However, how short is too short, and what should be, the most highlighting points, and in that same direction. Do you guys prefer having attached document or everything in the actual email? These are questions that us PR professionals.
I don't want the press release in the email. Like in the email, I want a summary of what you're trying to tell me. And then you attach your press release. You just say see more, information in the press release. From a broadcast perspective, we are a visual medium. So, I want to know if you have pictures. I want to know if they are, what quality of picture they are. I want to know if I can broadcast these pictures. I want to know if you have video. I want to know if I can broadcast this video. So, that kind of information is important to me. And that's just something you can include a file to a video, video file. You can attach the photos, whatever you want. I mean, usually links are the best thing, right? You just click on them, it takes you to wherever it is you need to go, and there's not a lot of clutter in the email itself. But those are things that would be important for me to have in that email. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I would absolutely agree with that. But I think in terms of the press release itself, I'm always looking for, not just quotes from, the CEO on, again, what the announcement is. There's always going to be some element of like, we're excited about this, or it's like, I'm sure you are, but, please tell us, again, I keep going back to this, but the uniqueness of what this is. Like, tell me what this is, and not just from one perspective. There have been announcements where, maybe a partnership. I want to hear from all sides of things, not just the vendor, not just, who the people who are partnering, but, someone outside who is going to possibly be benefiting or has already benefited from what this is. Just all sides. It's one thing to do, like the CEO and, further explaining what the announcement may be, but a variety of quotes is always really good too.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, Allison. I'd also encourage people to think out of the box, not just when you have version 8.4.6 of your latest product coming out. Think about things that are in the news and what's relevant to the audience right now, because you might strike out in a pitch about your latest product. But for example, I had somebody pitch me, not long ago, a month ago, about the Snowflake IPO, which was really hot. Well, they didn't really have anything to do with it, but they were offering comments about it and how it related to their business. So a lot of the times, if you think that way, you're not going to be rolling out a new product or having something that's super newsworthy all the time, but you can get your name out there. And if you've established that relationship with one of us, we're more likely to recognize your name and say, hey, this person might actually have something legitimate to say about something that's current events.
Right.
That's a good point.
Always get that person. Find the person that'll listen to you. One of us that'll hear your voice. If you're going to send us information, send us good quality information, bullet pointed. Make sure it's less is always better up front, and then give us the rest. Either an attachment or at the bottom of the email, but don't all put it all into one giant paragraph and throw it at us, because we don't have time to
read a book
that we get a day.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of a teaser on it. Let us know that it's something that's valuable to us, and keep in touch with us, right? I mean, just make sure that you're the one that is the person to speak to when there's a question we have, or if we want to write about a topic that we can use you.
Thank you, guys. So everyone listening to us here today, please just remember what was just discussed. Main tips to personalize your pitch. Know the name of the journalist. Sounds obvious, but it's very important here. And to have any sort of data, supportive visual, obviously, and then make a sharp and juicy pitch. Jumping on what you said, Craig, in regards to the relationship, I think it's key when we work with you guys. So once your person or business approaches you with the pitch, how can you follow up? How can they continue or build on that?
Well, that's a good question. One thing I see a lot is that companies will come to us, they'll make a couple of mistakes. One time they will just release whatever they've got on the day that they are releasing it. Let us know in advance. We always honor embargoes. For the most part, most media will do that. Let us know a week in advance or a few days in advance so that we can jump on it. You're always going to, one, have a better chance of having us pay attention to what you're giving us. And two, you're giving us time to call you up, email you, to interview you, to get more information on it. So we can get that story. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be released the day of the news. Whereas if we just get something that comes in on the 24th, because it's the 24th of the month, and that's when you decided to release it, a lot of the times we're not going to pay that close attention to it because we already know it's out there, for instance, on the web somewhere where people can get that information. I think the second important point on this is to make people available to talk to us. So if you don't do the whole embargo thing and you do release some sort of important news, a lot of the times it's not always going to have all of the information that's pertinent to our business. Now, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but I think the important thing here is that you have people available. I wouldn't tell you, how many times we try to follow up on a story and we'll hear from some PR person, oh yeah, we've got somebody on the line for you. We're going to get you connected to them. And then it's the end of the day and they say, oh, sorry, they were in meetings all day. So that really doesn't help us. It's probably the most frustrating thing that we deal with on a given basis. So always, from a channel perspective, the release might not drill down on the channel. So we're always going to have a question that follows up that says, hey, how does this impact the channel? So you should be ready with that information, have somebody available to answer it.
When you send us something, especially on an update on a product, right, you should always give us, enough time to communicate it to the audience. Don't just expect us to get it and then put it out. There's just so much on our plates for all of our teams, for all our editorial teams to go out there. So give us, headway. Give us like a few days extra. We do honor embargoes at our company as well. And we're happy to take stuff early. Just send it to us with a note saying this is embargoed till this date and time. We're good that way. And really get us the stuff that's important. Sometimes we get updates from some vendors that are just an update, and it's not mind shattering. It's just an update. And unless it's really exciting, it's not newsworthy, right? So give us something that's really newsworthy. Give us information that we can take to market, especially if it's from an MSP or a vendor. Either way, it should be something that we should want to talk about.
Interesting.
I was just going to add, and I think it's important, yes, to get it to us soon, or well, before the actual announcement happens. But again, I'll bring up the quotes thing. If you want a unique perspective, if you want kind of something from all sides, that allows us time to get those. Otherwise, it's a regurgitated press release. It's important to cover the news, sure, but we want to know why this matters to our audience. Maybe we could tap into something else that's happening in the industry or something else we've written about recently or whatever that may be. But that's when, you could get those kind of tailored quotes that you can include, those kind of all around perspectives. So that's, again, that's one thing I think that's the most important to me is getting those all sides of things.
One thing that you mentioned, Joel, is the news aspect, but especially for you guys in the channel, that's definitely in regards to the product, the features and anything that is new, something that's key. However, for companies, sometimes it's really hard to find that angle. What would be your advice here then on catching your attention on a, if I may say, simple product update, but still that would need some, press coverage?
Give us the excitement about it. Don't just send us a product update. Give us why is it so important to have this update, and what is it going to actually do to change the view of an MSP? Why is that MSP going to be able to make more money or go out to market tomorrow with it and build his or her business, right? That's very, very important.
Thank you. Anna, do you want to add anything from a broadcast point of view here to this question?
Well, I would just say that, again, like the rest of my colleagues, we also honor embargoes, and we actually very much appreciate to get a heads up on a news event, especially. And for us, it behooves you as a PR person, because that way we have more time to get a guest, to get somebody to talk either from the company that's pitching the story or from a counter side. I mean, it just gives us more time to get it together, because you can't always get somebody on the day. It almost never works. Unless, you can get like your friends of the show, right? Your usual suspects, guests, speakers that you always have on, that you can have, they talk about everything. Those guys, yes, they can come. But if you want somebody specifically from your company or somebody that has a specific angle, that needs to be worked out. And you can't do it from one day to the next. People have lives, right? So that's why, the embargo and the heads up works. And again, I know that comes from building relationships. And I was curious as to how it works in the US these days, because I've been away 10 years and here in Switzerland, there's still like a lot of phone calls. People still call a lot, and they want to talk to you. And I wondered if it's the same. Is it the same back in the States, or is it mostly email?
Yeah, it's pretty much email. I hardly ever deal with anyone on the phone at this point. I don't know about the rest of the panel here, but Yeah, it's almost exclusively email. We'll reach out sometimes, certainly to do interviews on the phone, but as far as how they're contacting us, it's email, and it's even started to get into social a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's interesting. Here, they're a bit more traditional, I think, and they like to pick up the phone and hear your voice and talk to you, and then coffee. There's always talk of coffee, and which I'm a people person. I appreciate also the face-to-face contact, but I find that helps with the relationship building. But yeah, it's a different. But anyway, I wanted to say something else, which was I think something that you said earlier as well, Craig. It's also like make yourself available. Like if you call and you pitch me a story and I respond out of whatever many stories I have in the day, like call me back, or write me back. Don't have me waiting until the end of the day to hear from you. That's because, yeah, I mean, that's time, and then it will just increase the odds that we're going to put your story on the back burner,
Yeah, and back in the day, I used to be in the local TV news business, and the most stressful part of the day was always about 8 a.m. where you sat around and tried to decide what you were going to do. So that really applies to anyone who's pitching stories to a local newspaper and television as well.
Great.
Thank you, guys. And it's definitely very interesting to get the perspective depending on the geographies. I think it's very important to highlight to the audience to really keep in mind and do the research on what is the typical approach in each country. I think it's key. Another thing that Craig you started to mention, and I want to continue on, is obviously the social media aspect. Besides this being important for the few years, it's all the more important this year with what we are all, going through with this pandemic. What would be your advice here to the PR professionals or business owners that are trying to reach out to you on social media? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, so I can start that off since I brought it up initially. It's interesting. I think we'll have a lot of different opinions on this. I actually don't get that many pitches on social media. I do get some, but the ones I do get, I seem to pay a little more attention to. I think mainly because I feel like it's that personal approach that we were discussing. If somebody DMs me on Twitter or reaches out via LinkedIn and they actually have something, it feels like more of a personal relationship than getting that email, which half of the time, if I don't see anything personalized to me, I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, 200 people got this email. So me personally, I do pay a little more attention to those when they come in. Maybe some of you get more of those than I do, so it's not so unique. But I actually like the social media pitches because I know they're me.
Ooh, I agree. Can I just say that quickly? I'm with you, and I do get a lot of pitches via social media, via LinkedIn especially, and they tend to be more concise. I don't know if that's the nature of social media, but you don't get these long pitches. They really get to the point, and they throw in a link, and then it's like, "What do you think?" And I find that easier to respond to.
Exactly.
Allison, what's your say on this?
I'm a little bit like Craig. I don't receive that many on social media, but I have in the past. And like Anna said, they're typically pretty short and to the point, and even the ones that I can recollect, are more like, hey, here's who I am, here's what company I represent, let's connect at some point. It's not even throwing out a pitch right away. That comes later. I've had a few instances where that's happened. Someone's connected with me professionally on LinkedIn and, shot me a message that says, I see that you write about X, Y, and Z, my company does X, Y, and Z, or the company I represent, let's connect sometime. Because I think, ex-CEO would have good insight on this topic. So that is very much appreciated from that standpoint.
Thank you.
We have very little on social media, but communication on social media is very odd. So they might not pitch us on social media. They might say, hey, I just sent you an email on social media, through social media. They'll say, hey, I shot you an email as well. And if you have a second, please take a look at it. Or, just hello, I'm so-and-so. We met through so-and-so. I sent you a press release. Take a look at it. And it helps quite a bit. social media aspect does help, but I prefer to see them through email, that I can send it off to one of my other editors, and they can cover it quicker. And it does it that way. Through social media, it's a little bit harder, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the communication now through social media.
I think you guys might get a few more requests after this panel than on your social media. Watch out.
Bring it on.
Is there any exclusivity you could give us here in terms of stories you might be working on at the moment, or that you have interest potentially from people in the audience into hearing about before we close this panel here today?
I think we're a little different than the other media outlets, where we're more best business practices than articles that you guys write, and look for different editors. You can send us channelpronetwork.com. You can send us even to myself or one of my team members why we should write about you, and what is the reasoning, whether you're an MSP. If you're an MSP and you have a great story, Channel Pro writes about MSPs. Every cover at Channel Pro Network is about, every issue we've ever written has always been about an MSP, not about a vendor. That's where we're different than a lot of the media outlets in the world today, especially in the channel. We prefer to get a good story about an SMB partner that is building their business with something different and new, and that can help other partners. So those are the kind of messages we're looking for at our company. I know they're going to be different for every one of us, but we look for that. Also for email from vendors, on a vendor's point of view, we look for best business practices from them, maybe partner programs that are being updated or replaced or new. Those are all the different things. Or something mind-shattering that you want to let us know, let the readers know about what's happening today or tomorrow. We want to hear about it. It doesn't have to be breaking news to us. We'd like to hear it, but we'd like to hear the best business practices as well.
Thank you so much. Anyone wants to add any last few words?
Well, I would just say it comes back to the original message of knowing your audience, and that being us in the media and who we are. Joel talks about what he's looking for. I'm going to be looking for that and some different things. You have to understand also, when it comes to websites, there are some sites that are reliant on driving traffic in addition to getting people to register for the website. We do both of those things, so that's an important thing for folks to know. So that's why we're looking for really up-to-the-minute news, as well as contributed content and so on and so forth, areas that will reach different types of audiences within our main audience, and to attract that partner or vendor who is reading our site for various reasons. So that's an important thing to know as well.
Thank you so much, guys. To wrap up here, I would just say to everyone watching us, first, know your market, geography, and obviously know the right person you want to talk to and bring your story to. Make sure that story is newsworthy, has some juicy numbers, some great visuals, and don't hesitate to give some heads up to these guys, and then do a nice follow-up and build some relationship through social media. I think that wraps it up. I just want to thank you very much. It's a unique opportunity to have you guys here. We know you're very busy. We were really pleased. And I think you brought some great takeaways for the viewers for sure. Everyone, please stay with us. We're going to go to a Q&A now. And it's, again, the unique possibility for you to ask all of your questions to these guys. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get started with the first questions. Let's see. I think that's a good one. There. So basically, do we have to buy ads or invest in any sort of other services with media in order to get coverage? Do you want to go for it, Craig, over there?
Yeah, sure. No, the answer is no, or it shouldn't be. Certainly within our company, that's not the case. I'm not going to say there's no effort by sales sometimes to want to get involved in that process, but any good journalist organization would fight back against that, and I think we do a pretty good job of that. Fortunately, our sales department doesn't do that too much, and if they do, we have a little bit of a conversation about it. And usually they see it our way. But any good journalism should remain independent of the sales department and any asks to buy ads.
Couldn't agree more. Allison, is there anything you wanted to add to that? I see you nodding your head there.
I'm agreeing with Craig. I think good, like he said, good journalism. I think that's what you have to use as your base. So yeah, no, I would agree totally with that.
Absolutely. I think for us, PR is definitely a challenge and a balance. And I think when most people see the coverage, they most probably think it's something that's been paid for. And actually, especially us at Acronis, is definitely free coverage on the PR standpoint. Communication teams is definitely something that should be dealt with by the sales and marketing teams. Another question here around the use of interns or graduates to handle PR and to connect with you guys. What do you think about this, Joel? Do you want to say?
I think that interns are great to have. It's easy to get. They're available. A lot of colleges offer, programs that you can go and get interns. I would absolutely recommend getting an intern, especially if you can get them without any costs to your company. But if you have some budget and you can invest in that, that would be great.
For sure. I mean, a bit of budget is always a nicer for these guys. We do have interns at Acronis, and luckily they get compensated. Did you have the experience to receive pitches from graduates or people with obviously less experience in PR, Allison, and how did you feel about those?
You can kind of tell when someone, has not a lot of experience, but it's, I was there once. I was a PR intern for many years, both in college and for about a year or two after. And, it is fantastic experience. It really kind of, it hones your writing skills. And that's something you very quickly learn, just in your interactions with journalists is, did this pitch fly? Nope. So it's a very good learning experience, honestly, on both ends. So I think it's just a matter of getting, like we mentioned in the session, it's honing your skills. It's getting to the point quickly. It's all of those things, just making sure you're connecting with your intended audience.
Yeah, I think the only caution would be in a tech-heavy industry like this, as far as how much responsibility you give to the interns, because it's not like some other businesses where they might be able to get up to speed a little faster on the subject matter. So just a word of caution there. But I was a broadcast TV intern back in the day, and they didn't pay me anything. Joel, I'm not sure I'd want you as my boss, though. If I was just starting.
Well, we do pay sometimes when we can.
Yeah.
In those same lines, so we had discussed earlier about the challenges, to get PR recognized in a lot of companies as a key aspect of the strategy. And here, some companies only have some budget to invest and decide to go for interns and graduates, as we just said. But what would you say to skeptical CEO or board around, the investments for PR and how relevant it can be to the business?
I can jump in, and I would think that PR is one of the most important parts of your business. If you're not communicating to the industry, to your audience itself, you're not building your business. You must get out there and spend a few dollars on PR to get the industry knowledgeable about what you can offer and how you can offer it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you just spend all of your time with your existing customers, you're not growing your business, right? I mean, if you don't get that word out, people aren't going to join up with you, and you're not going to grow that business. It's going to be pretty hard.
Absolutely. I see a few other questions, but I just want to continue on that topic, because one challenge that we sometimes face, we have absolutely great customer and partners, but some of them, are facing challenges around going out with a cybersecurity story. They want to put themselves out there, and ultimately it's all about the content that we get to you guys, the data and the case studies. What would you recommend here for vendors that have the same challenges? What would be the story that you will cover? Should we lack, example, relevant case studies? Will you still take on that news? Will you still work around that news if, for instance, we don't have enough case studies to quote, because we talked about this earlier, how for sure you guys need the relevant examples, but this is a real challenge, and I just want to understand what's a way to go around that and still be able to work with you guys. What's another alternative if we cannot quote a specific company, if we don't have local relevant data, if we're facing all those difficulties, how we can still get our stories out there?
Well, I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier in the session is just having that communication with whoever the editor is at the place that you're trying to connect with, and having that discussion. Just taking that example, it's sort of hard to say right now, not knowing an exact example. But if you have that relationship with someone in the media and you can say, hey, Craig, I've got this situation here. I can't give you these specific examples you might normally be looking for to make a good story out of it. What can we do? Now, if you just pitch that sort of relationship, probably it's not going to go that far without much information. But build that relationship and you'll be able to talk to somebody who you know and potentially figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, like we discussed earlier in the session, you have to build that relationship with your editors, with the people in the industry, all of the publications that are out there. If you're not, then you're not going to get that message out there the way you want to. So you're going to have to invest a little bit of time into reaching out to us and making sure we know who you are.
There have been instances in the past where, again, when I was on the PR side of things, the news may not have been anything really of note anyway. It's just maybe a small announcement, whatever the case may be. But if you work with the folks that you're supposed to be working with and the way you're supposed to be working with them, you could maybe tie it to a broader industry story. You could maybe tie it to some thought leadership piece or something. There's again, even if it's not just news, you can still work with, whoever you're trying to work with.
Thank you guys. Another question that came up is around events. Interestingly, with such times, as most people are going virtual these days, but still some of them taking place. How do we get you to attend and cover events? Interesting one.
Go ahead, Joel.
I think that's one of the hardest things we can do today. So how do you get to an event? Well, I'm actually at an event on the road today for the rest of the year. I'm with a group of people that will help, reach out to MSPs across the country with a road show, but it's all with face masks, only 20 people allowed, no indoors, all outdoors. It's very tough. But the other hand, there's all the virtual events, and you have to be involved in all these virtual events to get the communication. And that's the only way we're going to get it today. It's the best way.
So how to cut through the noise, because there's so many going on? What will catch your eye for the time being? What sort of pitch will get you to attend virtually or eventually then physically? Allison?
Well, that's a tough one. Like you said, I mean, everyone's going virtual this year. I think just something that can tie back to, you know, something in the industry that's unique. There's again, that's that's hard to kind of voice without giving some sort of specific example, but yeah, I think just anything that you can do to kind of position yourself in a unique way. You know, again, it's 2020. I mean, it's really hard to do that. But just really anything that you can kind of use as that, I suppose. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Definitely. I mean, the times we're going through are not helping, but there are still a few physical events going on. Then outside of that pandemic scope, just, you know, the thin line between, you know, inviting you guys to the event and the relationship as well, I think is tricky. There's another question that came up that's actually pretty good. We mentioned the follow-up, the building around the relationship being key, but is there any sort of timeline that we're looking at for you that seems reasonable and appropriate?
I don't think, you know, anytime. Get to us at any time. Send us a message. And if we're writing an article or if we're doing a piece on something that interests us and you are the person that we want to talk to, we'll know to reach out to you, but you'll be the person of interest for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think make sure the message is crafted though. Don't have some boilerplate email that you're sending us, you know, 24 hours after we didn't have a chance to respond to you the time before. But yeah, as Joel said, there's really no timeline there. Just make sure you have a good crafted message, and don't hesitate to follow up, but make it personal.
Sounds good. So everyone, you heard, do not spam these guys, but be proactive and feel free to follow up here. I'm conscious of the time. I'm looking at the time. Is there any advice, any last word you would like to say to the audience today, guys?
Just hitting on the relationship part, you know, it does take some time to kind of form that relationship, but it's well worth, you know, what Craig mentioned, you know, personalize it, you know, reference things that we've written before that apply to the things you're saying. You know, we that goes so far. We really do appreciate that.
Yeah, if in doubt, again, as Allison just said, related to something in the news. If you've got a pitch, make sure it's current, make sure it's going to reach a broad audience.
Yeah, and Allison said it's a relationship, right? Build that relationship with us and you'll be able to get to us easier. And make sure it's relevant to our publications. That's very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And thank you to everyone who's watching us today live. We hope that you found answers to your questions here today and some takeaways for your activities.
Thanks for having us.